Hi, I am relaxing, and always I find a place in nature that I can connect with the trees and the sky, wherever I am. This time, I'm not at home. I've traveled to a small southern town, a place where I grew up, and I'm in a park in the downtown area. This area has now become a historic district of this extremely historical place. Extremely extraordinary in so many ways. Let me give you an example. Most of the children in my school went out into life and became highly successful. Many of us attended Howard University as a cohort. And from there, some of us became lawyers and doctors and authors and people who were in government. I know we had one classmate that went to Switzerland and we never saw him again. His name was Lloyd. Very, very smart. Yes. Oh, it feels so good to just sometimes relax yourself and slow everything down. Yes, I do. I do that a lot. You're absolutely right. I think I'd like to take you on a tour of my hometown. As I said, we're in the historic section, and where we are is a park that when I was a child, I couldn't come to this park because it was during segregation. It was in a section that was very wealthy people lived. I should say there were sections in this city where in those days we would call colored people lived, and there were sections that you were not allowed to even walk in as a person who was of color. And when I say of color, that primarily meant African American, or what we know as African American or blacks now. Because there were not very many Asian people in this community. I hope I held the camera well. There were not very many Hispanic people. Maybe there was a few, perhaps people of Jewish descent. It was a small town and kind of a narrow existence. There were fruit that I had never heard of, like a papaya. I'd never heard of a papaya. I knew about oranges and apples. In places in the world, Of course, I studied them in geography, but honestly, I can make no connection to what I was studying in geography in the world that existed. The languages, the continents, the music, the culture. No, if I did study it, it was like something that was not real to me. And I've been fortunate in my life to have the opportunity to discover for myself and connect to the world and its diversity. So I'm going to try to just take you for a walk. I hope I'm holding the camera in a good way. If I'm not, please forgive me. As time goes on, I'm sure I'll become more skilled and my equipment may become more sophisticated. This is my hometown on a Sunday morning. My small town. So I'm a small town girl. That's where my roots are. And this is the Poplar Lawn Historic District. I hope you can see the sign that says Liberty. These were gated communities, yes. Okay, let me read this to you. It says, this house, it's the history of this house. Scottish immigrant James Windle built this Greek revival house in 1845 and lived there until his death. In 1865, Captain Gordon McKay bought the house. Over the second half of the 19th century, he published many works on the classics, poetry, and his service in the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia. And then it goes on to talk about who the people are that have lived in that house since then. And there's a building in the distance. That's our public library. Or it was our public library years and years ago. Isn't that beautiful? In the public library, it had a side door that colored people went to enter. There's the building there on the corner. And you see this, I'm going to show it to you. Ooh, look at this. Interesting. Yes, there are people who have come back and bought houses in this area. After integration, there was a disruption in African Americans, known as coloreds. There was a disruption in their enterprise and their home ownership, and so many progressive quality life pursuits and accomplishments. Their homes were destroyed so that they could set up zones of redevelopment. This was the library that I went to as a child. And I remember being here and the whole reality. This is where you entered in those days. And the reality of being in a very small part of a building, and you were restricted because of your race. And I remember feeling less than. There was a sense of superiority that people who were not of color exhibited in their presence. It was like they tolerated you. It was like you were less than they were. And you would be constantly placating and sucking up to them. You learn how to talk. Miss Johnson, hi Miss Johnson. How you doing today? And Miss Johnson would look at you, a little black girl, and she would say, nothing. She would look at you and she would say nothing. She would pretend she didn't hear you. Wow. The way that felt was like, oh, so dismissive. And it would give you the feeling that you didn't count, that you were not the same. And at that time, there were no people of color on television. No black folks was on television except Amos and Andy. Amos and Andy and Little Rascals. Look at this. McKinney Library. Petersburg, that's the town, is given free public library. This was in 1960 when this building was selected and designated a public library. It's called the McKinney House now. And they have built a beautiful, brand new, gorgeous library. So, once there was integration, homes of black people were destroyed to make what was to become a redevelopment that to some extent it never did happen. The businesses in the town eventually closed because there were malls that were built on the peripheral of the city. So all the major stores closed in downtown Petersburg and found spaces to sell their products in the malls. It's kind of sad for me to be here, and I see a lot of people who are homeless, a lot of buildings and that were owned by black people that my friends, their parents were in business here, churches that were vibrant with a really prosperous and lucrative middle class black people. It's sad to me what happened to my hometown. So much of the life of it is gone. And you just see people displaced, having issues and problems of survival, mental health issues. And I know it's not just true of my little town. It's true of so many once thriving black communities in the United States. And of course, there's the other side to that picture, and that's the side of the doors that have opened, the opportunities that many of us took advantage of. And now we face challenges as individuals, and we face challenges as black people. We face challenges. My daddy was a cab driver, so I was constantly driving around this town. And this was a busy hub. Small town. Intersections. Not many this big in this little small town. And down the street, some very important things happened. This street was made one way where it used to be two ways. But some things are the same, like this building here. There's so much of this downtown. People trying to make it happen. I've always sort of had a dream of coming back here and moving back into my childhood home that has survived for 40 years. Lots of things are gone, but my childhood home, the building itself has been rebuilt several times. There's so much work to be done. So much work to be done. And who's going to do that work? You? Are you going to do that work? If there are young people that are watching this, are you going to do that work? Can I help you prepare? If I can, put comments in the chat about the kinds of things, the questions that you have, the observations that you've made. Share them with me. And as a community, we can talk about it. Okay? There has been some attempts at entrepreneurship here. Someone making hats, trying to sell them. And there's the university here. There's vibrancy here. It's just not the same as I once knew it to be. But everything changes.